So my name is Bette Billiot. I am a member of the United Houma Nation Tribe, and I am residing currently on our traditional homelands in South Louisiana, more specifically Lower Terrebonne Parish. We've been tagged as the area in the nation that is losing land at an accelerated rate higher than anywhere else in the nation far as land loss due to oil and gas industry, the destruction of our marshland, saltwater intrusion, sea level rise, subsidence, all of those just perfect combination for what's happening down here. I work for Sierra Club. I've been with Sierra Club for a year, just made a year in April. I work mainly on building opposition for the LNG terminal proposal in Plaquemines Parish, which is a neighboring parish to Terrebonne. Plaquemines also is a parish that gets hit, if not more, just as often as Terrebonne Parish when it comes to hurricanes, flooding, and a lot of people that's not familiar with Louisiana don't understand that, living here, we don't need hurricanes to be flooded, to be underwater, just a good tropical storm, a good thunderstorm. We're getting water in homes in some places because we're so below sea level. I also do organizing for an organization called Housing Louisiana that is focused on affordable housing and tackling the housing crisis that's happening here in Louisiana. That's also tied in and connected to our climate crisis, our environmental issues that's going on when it comes to housing. The color, the shade of your skin determines on, where you're going to be able to afford to live. That connects to health impacts depending on where you're living at. So they all tie in together. Those are two of my hats. I wear many other hats, but those are my two main focus: housing and the oil and gas industry and climate. So right now, currently, what I'm working on around the LNG terminal in Plaquemines Parish is getting residents organized to be able to, stand against this monster terminal that's already being built. It is actually the largest construction site in the nation being built right here in Louisiana. Louisiana is a huge oil and gas state. I mean, we go out of our way to bring in these industries to set up shop here. And they all set up shop in communities like mine, and communities that are already being devastated after one thing after another. There's a struggle sometimes when you're dealing with communities here, especially here, because we we just got into hurricane season. It hasn't even been 2 years since Hurricane Ida has devastated us. A lot of us are still in recovery from Hurricane Ida. Me, I'm one of them. I'm still repairing my home from Ida, while also in this fight for other communities next to mine, against these industries. And it makes it difficult for people because, as organizers, we have a job. We have a, I don't want to say like a typical 9 to 5, but we have a job and a responsibility that we have to uphold and we have to do. But we also have a job and a responsibility and commitment to our community, and going into communities and working in communities, even though I'm not living in Plaquemines, I'm familiar with how they hold themselves. And I can't just go into a community like I need your voice and things like that when they're living in FEMA campers and, not getting electricity on because they just got hit by a hurricane, or something's happening, their water pressure, they're having to boil water because these industries are using up all the water for what they need, and leaving these communities struggling. So it's kind of meeting people where they are and tackling one thing and not just going into there and saying, I need this from you. It's like, what can we do together? So I can help you, you can help me. We have to really get on the same page because we have a lot. It takes a lot. It takes a strong person to live out here the way that we do, right on the water. I just described this a couple of days ago, but I tell people, when you look at a map of Louisiana, where you see the land that meets the water, we're about knee deep right there on the map. Because a lot of people think of Louisiana and just think New Orleans, and Louisiana is inside of New Orleans. Hurricanes hit New Orleans, but There's a whole other world outside of New Orleans and Louisiana, and that's where we're from. It has to come through our communities first. Every storm that comes into Louisiana comes through us before it gets to New Orleans. New Orleans is a vital part of Louisiana, but it's not all of Louisiana. There's lots of little communities like ours that are suffering, and where a lot of these industries are coming in and setting up shop. Another thing that Louisiana does is we allow these industries to come in and not pay property taxes. The LNG terminal that is being built, they're going to get an $80 million tax break over the next 5 years. In Plaquemines Parish, I think their whole budget for the parish is between 30 and 50. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact numbers with me right now, but way lower than what they're giving in property tax incentives, for industries to come in and set up shop. And then Louisiana ranks in the 40s for a lot. So they're like 48 in education, they're like 45th in infrastructure and healthcare, and all of these check boxes that we want to be in the top for. Louisiana is way down there, but yet we can afford to give away all this money in property taxes to have these industries come in and set up shop. They're going to set up shop here anyway, which is sad, but they're coming here anyway just because of the location. It's prime real estate for a lot of these industries that they come and they get what they need and they extract and they disrupt and then they leave. And then we're stuck with the aftermath. We have had a lot of good feedback from communities. We have a lot of organizations, small organizations in every community and pockets that work together to be able to try and tackle these industries. But it's also really a double-edged sword a lot. So growing up in my community, everybody that was a male in my family worked in one way or another an industry. Either they worked on a boat, they worked on a rig, they worked on a platform. They worked some part of the industry on a pipeline. My brother was worked in a pipeline. My dad was a boat captain. My mom was a cook on a rig. Everybody is a part of the industry. It brought a lot of families out of poverty. A lot of people didn't look at it. And the history of the industry in Louisiana, especially in our tribal community, was that our people, we're water people, we're water tribe, and we knew how to navigate. Our people knew how to navigate the waterways. So when the industry was coming up and they were needing guides and they were needing people that knew the waterways of Louisiana, and they hired a lot of our people. And this is like in the 1920s and 30s and 40s when oil and gas was really taking off, and the money was great. And for a long time a lot of our people worked at seasonal, like, so the off season of hunting and trapping and things like that, they worked on a boat, some field of the industry. And then when the industry was low, they went back and they worked in the fields, and so it alternated until one started affecting the other and the climate started changing and things like that, is what we're facing now. Still is a goal for a lot of our people to be their own captain of the boat. They feel like they've reached something. But over the years, like how I got into this work, with seeing that, a lot of these things that we wasn't recognizing before about our land changing, about the salt water, about all these health issues that our people are facing, we really wasn't connecting the dots on how what we've been doing for years, for decades, as far as employment and things like that, what it was doing to us. It was just chalking it up as, we're getting old, or, we're getting sick. But the cancer rates have been just outrageous here. We're losing more people. We're losing a lot younger people. I would say about a couple of years ago, not COVID related, but we lost probably about 4 or 5 men in a period of a year, all due to heart attack, that were under the age of 45, and it was quickly. It's like nobody's connecting, like, how is this happening? Like, something is going on, and all of these men worked in the industry in one form or another. And it's the same thing in our families. These unexplained sudden health issues that are coming up, that we're losing community members, and trying to show people and make people understand that there's a direct connection to what's going on, and like what we're taking in, and what we're around, and what we're exposing ourselves to. Like, we cannot keep the same status quo as we've been keeping all of this time. Like, we have to really change that mindset, and not so much as the mindset, but we have to change our direction. Like, this is so direct down here, and it's so blatantly in your face that we have industries that come right into our elementary schools to try and plant the seed at an early age of, when you guys are older and you go into high school, you could dual enroll in the community college and get a certificate to work in industry and be making $70,000 a year. I've seen this. I also work with Indian education. In the Indian education, they've come in, they actually was getting one of our own people to come in and talk about the wonderful programs, at our technical college that is almost 100% sponsored by industry, saying before they graduate, they can receive a certificate of completion through the technical college through dual enrollment to go right out of high school into the industry and just be making all of this money. And over and over and over again, it's a repeated thing, and it's a pipeline from the school straight into one of these industries. And my job and several other people that I work with and people in Sierra Club are trying to like cut that pipeline off. We should be showing our youth that there's alternatives to ending up on a boat or a rig or a pipeline or a platform. Like there's other options. And it's not a big fight that we have with community as far as community pushback, because we know like community should all be on board. Like they should want to stop this, our health and our environment and all these, but we also have to understand that we have households that are split. You might have a husband that works in the industry and a wife with children that understands like you're not going to live to 80 years old if you keep doing what you're doing. And it's split household. Like with this puts food on the table. This is what pays the bills. This is what keeps you home. And we have to find that medium when talking to communities, because we always want to be specific, I say, as far as like, I'm not coming for anyone's jobs. I'm not looking to get people fired. My whole family still works in the industry. I'm not coming to take that away from anybody. I'm coming for accountability from industries. I'm coming to educate a little bit. People that work on the rig and the workers, that's the people that I want to talk to so that we can have an open conversation of let's connect the dots on here, because I know when you get a job, your job is this is my job. I'm getting hired to be a manager, so I'm not worried about the manager stuff out here. I'm hired at this position with any position under me. That's their position. My job is here and I'm going to do the best of my ability. But when you start looking really at what's happening at the top and what's happening at the bottom, you get to see things from a different perspective. And that's what we try to bring a little bit. Like there's things that are happening that's affecting people outside of just this little tunnel vision of I'm going to do my 9 to 5 or my 8 to 8 or whatever it is, or my 7 and 7 for our offshore workers, and I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability and I'm going to go home to my family. And I'm not worried about what's going on, but we have to make sure that people understand what else is going on, because there are a lot of decisions that are being made and that are affecting these communities that they are a part of and don't even realize that they're contributing to. So when it comes to waste, when it comes to spilling, when it comes to pouring fuel overboard, that's always been a practice on a lot of things. Even in our shrimping boats, these things affect the environment. They affect the fisheries. That is also a huge part of our community. Every little thing plays a part. And once we start connecting those dots and realizing like, I'm also contributing to that, we can start making some little changes. I'm not going to say that it's going to work for everybody, because we really, really have a hard-headed community. It's hard conversation. Like there's some people that I know in my family and friends that we just will not talk about work. Like we're just always going to disagree no matter what is said, and we have to know how to choose our battles. But in the same sense, we know that there's a lot of people out there that's never heard these conversations, never put these 1 and 2 together and want to know. We come across people like that all the time. Like I would have never thought about that. I would have never thought about how the industry directly affects our school system or our jail system or our property value and things like that. Going back to the LNG terminal, there's a lot of communities that are going to be displaced. There already one community specifically where I think they had to buy out the whole community. You can practically touch, this levee that they built, this wall that they built around the construction site from the community. It is so close together. And the noise, the constant noise, the LNG, the facility has actually applied for permits to do 24/7 around the clock construction because it's so massive and they want to get this done. The communities, of course, they're already complaining about just the noise and the traffic and everything that's happening during the day. I can imagine what it's going to be to have this, these drilling and everything going on at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. With challenging them, it's more difficult here in Louisiana because we're so oil and gas heavy. There are so many politicians that follow the industry lead. There's a lot of play in here. It's always been a profit over people kind of mentality here in Louisiana, which is a horrible way to, run a state, but that's really how it's been. We get it all the time, why don't people just move where I'm at? We're losing land and we're not going to be able to be here. And the specific side of town that I'm on is basically an island. You cannot get here without crossing a bridge or going through a tunnel. It's separated by an intercoastal waterway, which at one time was just a ditch. And now, there's ships that's passing through. Just from Hurricane Ida, my home insurance has gone up from $2,000 to $5,000. They're making it so unaffordable for us to remain where we are. They're trying to remove people. They're trying to remove people from this area. But what they don't understand is that, once you start removing people and forcing us, this forced migration at what we're calling it from our land, from our traditional lands, where do you think we're going to end up? We're going to end up in your backyard. Like y'all are such in a hurry to not have us move away and take the businesses away, take our schools away. We just had to fight to save one of our schools that was devastated by Hurricane Ida, and they didn't want to rebuild. They wanted to keep the kids in another town. And once you take schools away, you're taking taxes away. You're taking, everything that comes with the school. And, they're slowly doing that to all of our bayou communities. But I had a meeting years ago, and I remember at that community meeting, there was a landowner that was saying, well, that's not our problem. They live on the other side of town on higher ground. They're not being faced with, these industries in their backyard like we are. And he was like, well, that's not our problem right now. And I was like, well, I'm going to just tell you this. If you want to save the west side of town, then y'all need to save the east side of town, because when we're forced to have nowhere to go, guess where our kids are going to end up? In your schools. Guess where all our jobs are going to be? On this side. It's going to be overpopulated, overcrowded schools, traffic, like all of those things are going to play a part, and then it's really going to be your problem, and then it's going to be too late. So we're fighting a lot always. And I had that conversation probably 7 years ago, and I still use it, and we still having to go through the same things of fighting to stay where we're at. And they are hitting us with all these spikes to stay where we are, especially with wind insurance or flood insurance or, just insurance in general on this side of town. It's ridiculous. And then on top of that, industries that are just coming in. I think we have 4 industries that are going to be coming in within the next 2 years. It was just going to equal over $1 billion in tax incentives for them to be here that will not go to the state, for them to come here. That is another thing that we're trying to educate communities on, and understanding like these industries are not just coming here because, we're beautiful Louisiana. This is sportsman's paradise. It's like they're getting something out of it other than just our oil and our gas and everything else. They're getting all these tax breaks and incentives, and they'll come into a community and they say, well, we'll go ahead and upgrade your YMCA that was damaged, and that'll cost about $1 million, and we'll fix this road that we're going to be using because we're building, that'll be a few $100,000. We're going to give you something back for being so generous to us, but giving us, $1 million, maybe $1.5 million for infrastructure and upgrading and a little bit of money to school, and you're getting an $80 million tax break, it doesn't quite equal up. And people don't know that. Like they have no clue the incentives that the state gives these industries to come and set up shop here, and that the damage that they do. One of the other things that we do also is, so with Sierra Club has really great partnerships with other local organizations like Earth Justice and Healthy Golf and Taproot Earth, and that's just to name a few. And each organization are all based on, environmental justice and climate and, grassroots organizing. but they also bring something different to the table. So we're a great coalition in that sense. But we have one that, hey, we have a community that is facing some air quality issues, and they're on it. So they're able to go and be able to set up air monitors in that community to start testing, you getting that documentation, because that is your strongest, that's always our strongest defense, is like, we have this documentation here. We have, this is before, this is after, this is during, however we want to do it. Water testing, lead testing in the water, all of these things that we have to put in our arsenals for litigation. Sierra Club is notorious for filing litigations against the industries, against all of these terminals that are happening, because we not only have the one in Plaquemines, but we also have one in Cameron. I think we have two in Cameron. They're all over here. There's 12, I believe, along between Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. So we're busy. So the terminal that is being built in the LNG terminal is being built in Plaquemines, is that what's going to be passing through there, that liquid nitrogen gas, it's not coming to us. It's going overseas. It's just passing through. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think that that's coming, that's going into reserve, that's coming here, and it's not. And when it comes to local jobs, what happens here is that a lot of these companies will have contracts. They'll contract other companies to bring in workers. They'll set up a camper park in the community and bring workers in on contract and have them live in the camper park or the trailer park, or however it is. And now they're a part of the community, because when they have lunch, when they have to put gas, when they need to go to the gas station, they're spending money in the community. So now they are local. Those are the local jobs that get had. Now you might have 4 or 5 people that they hire from that are truly from there, so that they can check that box. But the majority of the workers that work in our industries are people on contracts from somewhere else, either out of state or out of the country, and they come in on contracts because they're constantly rotating. And I've had family. My mother-in-law married somebody that was working here on contract. That's what happens a lot. So it's also following that, are they really still holding true to, local jobs? How many local people can actually say that they work in one of these industries compared to the rest of, who they have as far as on these contracts? There's a lot of material out there online to be able to show exactly what happens if something goes wrong with one of these LNG terminals that explode, or if there's a leak, or if there's, and here we're notorious for leaks here. I'm just speaking on what happened here, so I'm not sure about what's going on your end, but we use a lot of that material to be able to show, like, this is the like for the in the LNG construction site that they have these huge containers where they're going to be storing. Normally, I think the sites have maybe 1 or 2. This one, I believe, has 4 or more. And someone was saying something about there was enough, big enough to hold an atomic bomb or something. And somebody was saying we had enough to hold, 5. And then they're also talking about if there's a leak or if there's some kind of environmental issue within the impacts are like a 5 to 10 mile radius. And it's proven that depending on the size of the terminal or what's being proposed to be built or what is already built, that if the impacts are way much greater. And then you look at the communities that are around there. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're trying to move a lot of these communities away, because they already know what's going to happen with us is we're going to have a hurricane that's going to hit this terminal, which is going to be horrible. We've already have communities that had tar pits in there when storms come in and waters come in and flood it and overtopped, and all of that have I think it was offshore waste that was going into communities. There's just one thing after another. What I would definitely tell the community folks that have no idea of what this is or what it's going to bring, and all they may hear is, because the industry will come and try to sugarcoat everything and promise jobs and promise upgrades and things like that. But what are they getting in return in comparison to what they saying that they're going to give? If you're going to give me $1, but you're taking 1,000, is that really fair? If we're giving you 1,000, basically what Louisiana is doing, like find out what your state's incentives are to these industries that they want to come set up exactly where you are, because they're getting something. It's not just the minerals. There's something that the state is doing to entice, that they're picking the specific location. What are they getting in return? Is it contracts? Is it some kind of labor deals that are happening? Something is going on that they pick this specific location, and then do that comparison chart. What are they promising? Usually there's some community meetings that happen beforehand. Also, another thing that is good to go to is going to the parish council meetings, or a county we still call them parishes, the county meetings, to find out what the discussions are, on the communities coming here, and they'll talk a lot about why or when or things like that. The other thing that's going to happen also is the environmental impact statement that has to happen before they can break any kind of ground for any kind of huge construction site, especially when it comes to any kind of industry. There's got to be an environmental impact statement, and get a copy of that and find out and be able to use that and say, this is unacceptable. So a tribe in Texas, their environmental impact statement, it was able to help them because it was showing they had got their own independent EIS, and was showing like, this is sacred grounds for this tribe. There's a lot of things that can be on your side and they can still just run right through it, but it's something that it's documented that can hold them up, as far as like, okay, well, we're gonna have to postpone this, we're gonna have to put this on hold and wait and see until we get this part cleared up. That'll help, and it gives you a little bit more time to organize and to get people on board. And then also with the people, like, if depending on where the proposed site is, and speaking to the people around, is like, oh, how would you like this in your backyard? Well, they said that they're going to give my son a job. He's 30 years old, he still lives at home, he needs to go to work, whatever it is, like, they're going to give him a job and stuff like that. But well, here's some statistics on the life expectancy of people that work in these industry with these kind of chemicals, with daily exposures. Like, well, he might get a job, but he might not live to 50, and